Hey guys, what's up? So today I'm going to talk about DC's dimensions, a spatial and a realm type. Mixie's fifth dimension, imagination, and Perpetual sixth dimension and beyond, basically. The reason why I'm talking about this is due to the fact that I saw people on Quora saying that the Scarlet King is high universal, which doesn't make sense because if the Scarlet King is high universal, this means that the High Elder Gods are omniversal, which is ridiculous for that matter. And they also forgot the fact that the High Elder Gods are universal. This would basically mean that the Scarlet King at best is high hyperversal, since he can destroy an uncountable amount of infinite dimensions and scales above the other lower Elder Gods like McCain and Yaldabaoth can destroy an uncountable amount of infinite dimensions just by existing near it. That's how powerful the Scarlet King is. He is powerful in his own right, but he's still nothing compared to the DC's new gods or any other god for that matter. Now I'm going to discuss dimensions in here, but I'm going to talk briefly about the core's questions on the Darkest Knight versus the Scarlet King. Some people think that he's high outer, and some people think that the Darkest Knight is father. But no, the Darkest Knight is very powerful. Since the sixth dimension within DC, he is basically beyond imagination. Mixie actually explains in one of these DC comic books that the first dimension is a point. This is not a spatial dimension, it is a realm. So keep up with me. So we're going to call these dimensions realms, just so people don't get confused by spatial dimensions like that. So you see, the universe is basically 200 trillion light years wide, as I've sawn in Webcam Parrot's video. It could be infinite, but is at least 200 trillion light years wide. But it's up to you of the size of the DC universe. And also, the bleed does contain infinite dimensions, as other comic book scans that Webcam Parrot provides shows. I do watch Webcam Parrot, and I've learned a lot about DC since I discovered him anyways. So basically, back to the dimension stuff. So you see, the first dimension to Mixie is a point. So we're just going to call this dimensions realms once again. So keep up. So the first realm is a point, which is wrong in spatial dimension terms, but we're just going to call them realms, since it will separate them. It will separate them from a dimension. But dimension is flowing out sometimes, since dimensions can be referred to a world, realm, universe, multiverse, or pocket of segmented space-time or realms, or whatever. So anyways, continue. So the second dimension is a line, and then he skips from objects like squares entirely to the third realm, where Mixie says that matter and stuff is basically a part of the third realm. And the fourth realm is basically the time stream, which is basically universal, due to the fact that it contains all times within the bleed, which is in itself a hyperversal structure. Although the third realm could be interpreted as a hypertime, a time above time, basically. So basically, the hypertime is basically some sort of structure, which is an universal structure, and has a physical form known as the brain-fold interior. So I couldn't provide much information about DC's cosmology, but I'll try to provide as much information as possible. So, here we go. So we got the fifth dimension, which is imagination, which stretches out to the source and possibly beyond. And since the source stands above the source wall, which in turn stands above the monitor sphere, yes, which views limbo as fiction, and limbo views the God sphere as fiction, and the God sphere stands infinitely above the bleed, which we already know contains infinite dimensions, and this would make the God sphere an universal structure, and limbo and the monitor sphere a high universal structure. Since the God sphere is an archetypal world where each god in there is a living idea, a platonic concept of sorts. And the sixth dimension is beyond imagination, where Perpetua herself lives. And Perpetua actually lost to the Darkest Knight. And Perpetua herself is above the fifth dimension, and the fifth dimension stands above the monosphere, which is a higher outer versal structure, which views Limbo as fiction, and Limbo views the God Sphere as fiction, which the God Sphere is basically an outer versal structure due to containing Platonic concepts, stands infinitely above the Bleed, which basically contains infinite dimensions, basically. So the Darkest Night defeating Perpetua is easily above the Scarlet King's levels of feats, since the Scarlet King is high hyperversal, while the Darkest Night is high outerversal, and that's a huge difference. So this is basically a stomp for the Darkest Night, to what evidence I have actually shown, and I got some of them from Quora and got some of them from Webcam Parrot and other DC and Marvel analyzers, mostly DC analyzers for this DC video at least. But this is basically just an inverse representation. And we also got the Overvoid, which contains all stories in existence, basically. And the Overvoid is basically a canvas in which the writer draws on. And Final Heaven is also a realm outside of the Overvoid, and they still stand infinitely below the Leviathan of stories, which contains infinitely many worlds, which views the previous as mere fiction, basically. So that's how big the cosmological structures of DC truly is. And also the Darkest Night also stomps the Scarlet King hard, like it's not even a competition. And also the New Gods is the equivalent of the High Elder Gods, and like the New Gods is basically the equivalent of the High Elder Gods. And since the High Elder Gods can destroy hyperversal deities and lower Elder Gods, or low Elder Gods, just by being in their presence. So Darkseid alone can easily, like True Form Darkseid, can easily destroy like the Scarlet King and his henchmen, like the Leviathans, basically, including the other lower Elder Gods of sorts. So anyways, that's it, guys. Hopefully I answered this question of the Darkest Night versus the Scarlet King, and also explaining the cosmological structures, in which information that I found from Quora and DC Comics YouTubers like Webcam Parrot. And also, make sure you guys enjoy the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications, and peace out.